Welcome everyone to our March Brown Bag. If you've been following our social medias, you can see that this month, our theme is emergency preparedness that applies to both natural disaster type emergencies as well as emergencies within diabetes. So highs and lows, everything that you can prepare for. Just going through DPAC again, I'm sure everyone here has been to a brown bag before, but just for formality's sake, our mission is to ensure quality of and access to care, medication, and devices for patients living with diabetes, and to educate, inspire, and empower patient advocates as well as lawmakers toward meaningful action on diabetes. So we train people in the diabetes community to talk to lawmakers, and we also educate lawmakers on issues related to diabetes. And if you don't already, our social medias at the bottom are Instagram, Twitter, or X, and Facebook. And these are our two featured speakers today. Chandra Kim got involved with diabetes advocacy, outreach, and fundraising when her daughter Taylor was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 2008 at the age of 7. Chandra left her career as a paralegal to dedicate her time to be accessible to Taylor during school, taekwondo training and competition, and she also began actively volunteering with diabetes nonprofit organizations. Fast forward 14 years, Chandra was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Chandra was born and raised in Hawaii and still lives there on the island of Oahu with her husband Ed and her two adult children, Mitchell and Taylor, along with Taylor's diabetic alert dog, Bryn. Sorry, I have them switched right now, but Nancy Murphy, our other speaker, she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 4 and has lived with diabetes for over 50 years. She is a seasoned healthcare professional with a range of experience, including critical care and air ambulance nursing, insurance industry compliance, and working with regulators to set industry standards. Her journey with diabetes includes raising a child with type 1 diabetes who is now in college. Nancy volunteered many summers at the Florida Diabetes Camp, and this camp actually holds special significance as she and her daughter both attended as children. And Nancy is a type 1 diabetes parent, provider, patient, and advocate. And oops, let me stop sharing so that we can have our speakers right here now. So Nancy and Chandra are both seasoned diabetes advocates with plenty of experience, and we are so lucky to have them as DPAC champions and on this call today. So thank you so much for both making time for us and our viewers. I'm going to go ahead and get started with the questions that we've prepared. So could you please introduce yourselves, sounds better coming from your mouths, and a small recap of your journey with diabetes.
Okay, I'm Nancy, and as was mentioned, that I was diagnosed at age 4, before the days of insulin pumps, and even A1Cs didn't exist back then. We just had urine testing for sugars, and I've watched the evolution of diabetes, and it's been amazing. I have my daughter was also diagnosed when she was age 6, and she's now in college. She's doing great. She's traveled the world. She's done triathlons. She's an amazing athlete, and she's just an amazing kid. So very proud of that. And then we've done a lot of advocacy, both of us. So that's my background with diabetes.
Good morning, everyone, because it's 7 o'clock in the morning in Hawaii. As Amanda mentioned, my daughter Taylor was diagnosed when she was 7. She's now 23, and it's so nice to hear that other kids are out there doing great things, because with diabetes, you live with it, never goes away. So it's good to hear good, strong kids. Taylor is done with college. She's working. She travels the world. She's experienced life young, and is still going strong. So, but also living on an island. We've had our disasters. I'm the girl for this one.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's a perfect segue to our next question. So every region has its own version of threats or natural disasters. What has been each of your experience, and is emergency preparedness something that you two gave thought to at all before your diabetes experience?
Yeah, yes, this is Nancy. I was actually born during a hurricane, during Hurricane Betsy back long ago. But since that time, I live in Florida and have been through many, many hurricanes. Just in the past couple of years, we've had a lot of flooding issues. And so being prepared for this is very important. Having insulin, I can't survive without insulin. So I've always got to have that. And I always carry a little bag with me that it's always with me, but I always have it ready to go. If I have to leave my house for any reason because of an emergency, I always have insulin pump supplies.
Wait, Nancy, I think you're cutting out a bit.
Ready to go at all times. You have issues where you don't get as much of a warning. Like if I can pull this closer, I'm saying that in dealing with hurricanes, we usually get warnings, and so we have a little bit of time to prepare. Whereas other disasters, you may not have as much time to prepare. So that just having something ready to go at all times is vital.
Your audio was going in and out a little bit in the middle. Maybe do you want to try turning your video off and seeing if that helps at all?
Sure. Let me go back to. I'm going to turn this a little. I'm sorry.
No,
Let's
it's
see
fine.
if I can do it this way. Okay, I apologize. Let me. There's. Let's see. Where's the phone? Well, Chandra can reply maybe now.
What was the question?
Yeah, don't worry. So I think Nancy was talking about hurricanes and the threat of them in Florida. I hope everyone got the gist of what she was saying. But so every region has its own version of threats or natural disasters. What has been your experience, and is emergency preparedness something that you gave thought to at all before your diabetes experience?
I'm from Hawaii, so I live on an island. We have hurricanes, tsunami warnings, fire, flooding. And then even for a short period, I was living outside of the country on an island, and I went through an attempted government coup. Um, so I have those situations. And then also where I grew up, we lived in a one way in and one way out situation. There was one road in and out. So it was kind of like I was put on this earth to do this emergency situations. I always think about it. It's been something that's been ingrained in me since I was young.
Can I ask what are the places that you lived?
Where have I lived? I mean, I lived in Hawaii, of course, on Oahu, and then I also lived in Fiji for almost 3 years.
Oh wow, okay. Um, Nancy, do you want to try saying something real quick and just let me see if the audio is all good?
Sure. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay. I think we should be good.
Okay.
Okay. I will move on to the next question. So everyone worries about natural disasters, but people with diabetes experience an added layer of stress because we require more materials to stay alive than the average person. That said, our slight advantage here is that our diabetes urges many of us to have a baseline level of preparedness when we're away from home. So what supplies, medications, or backups do you both try to have on you at all times?
This is Nancy. I mentioned I carry like literally a Ziploc bag with a bottle of insulin and an insulin syringe and a pump cartridge. And if I ever lose my sight, I know I can always draw insulin out of my cartridge. But I have that with me at all time. And being that my daughter also has type 1, I double everything when I'm with her. But keeping insulin with me is like you can't live without it. So I always have that with me. We have to worry about electric lossage, electric loss. I'm so sorry, I'm stumbling. I think, and so we want to have a backup supply of insulin readily available all the time. So go ahead, Chandra.
But even on the electrical loss, invest in solar chargers, because you can't use those plug-in ones that you have to charge up. Get the solar ones because sun's free, or get a generator. But you got to make sure you have ample fuel for the generator. And something as simple as, you still need fuel, but jump in your car and just plug in the charger from the car. So that's something on the power outages. And that's probably going to be the most common, not even for anyone who lives in a remote area. That's going to be common pretty much anywhere and anytime.
Yeah, especially for those of us who use pumps and are completely reliant on the pump. That's one thing that, as good as the pump is and how much it improves our blood sugars, it's another liability there, because you always
But
need.
that's why you got to have your old school supplies. You got to have,
Yeah.
the pen needles, you got to have the syringes, you got to have the testing strips. It's good to, you
Yeah.
always have that, the monitor thrown in your closet, but do you have the strips that, that you can test your blood with it? So you got to always make sure that you have the old school ones, even though, knock on wood, you don't have to use it, but you don't know. And then also you got to make sure you got that long lasting insulin, because on the pump, you don't use it. So you don't, it's something that's, I don't know, when was the last time you checked the expiration on the Lantus sitting in your fridge? You got to
Yeah.
check.
Yeah, another thing is I personally use the Tandem X2 pump, and there's a feature where if the battery dies, even if there's insulin in there, you can't use it. So that's a very scary situation to be in. So that's another reason to bring back up old school insulin and syringe.
Yeah, and you got to have those things on hand.
Yeah.
That's an issue too, where you don't always have it on hand. And of course, no matter how much you can plan, there's always going to be a situation. You got to be able to think quick, be
Yeah.
creative.
And
Because
if you,
the other thing I think that needs to be done is you got to have friends in the area, or the
Yeah.
online diabetic community. It's where it's where the people are going to help you. If you don't have the supplies, you can beg and borrow, barter something. You can do something, but have a way of communicating with other people who can help you.
Mhm.
exactly. And pen needles too, if you have a pen as your backup source of insulin, to make sure you have your pen needles as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about like low snacks and stuff like glucagon? Do you guys carry that with you?
Yeah. That's
And now it's
always.
Baqsimi. Yeah, Baqsimi,
Mm.
glucose tabs, juice boxes.
Yeah, I feel like I used to carry around like mini juice boxes a lot, but it's not always feasible to be carrying around liquids, and it's kind of sometimes you don't know if it's going to get punctured and ruin everything. So I carry around like small fruit snack containers.
Yeah, those Welch's
Yeah, I'm so
the
sick
little
of them.
bags.
Gummies,
Yeah.
right. I love
Yeah, and
Rice Krispie treats. That's another great one. They have like
oh
the small
yeah.
ones. They're 17 grams of carbs. They're a perfect thing to bring me up if my sugar gets low.
Yeah, they're really sugar dense. Yeah, in regard to glucagon, I think because we didn't fully touch on that earlier, but we recommend always having that on you. Keep in mind it only works if it's on you when you need it. Because for a while I was just keeping it at home in my fridge, and that doesn't really do anything because you only ever need it in an emergency. And there are also stable, ready to use products that can be carried around. That's why it's important to be updated on what's on the market. Because I didn't personally know that ready-to-use glucagon was available until recently.
Know that
And
either.
yeah, there's a question here. Someone said, does anyone have a small fridge hooked up to a generator or a solar charger, I guess in case of a power outage. She said, I don't think a solar charger can power a small fridge, but I just want to keep my stockpile of insulin cold as long as possible.
I think that would have to be a generator. There's no way that the
A
solar
fridge.
chargers are more for to charge up your pump and your CGM, your phone, that kind of things. And but the generator would be more for a fridge. And you know,
We have a generator and we've used that for all of the storms when we've lost electricity. There's during Hurricane Katrina, we lost electric for like 10 days. After Wilma, we had no electric for a week. And so having the generator is very helpful. Luckily, the insulin can still be out of the, non-refrigerated for approximately a month. But that's, you don't want to risk it. And so, but it can be out for a period of time and still maintain its potency.
Yeah. Another thing that is helpful there is ice packs. Since if a power goes out, you'll still have the ice pack. There are some that like maintain their composure for a long time. I want to say one time I went on an international trip, and this was like, I don't know, like 10, 15 years ago. And I was telling them I had medicine that needed to be refrigerated. And I think perhaps there was like a language barrier or something. And they gave me dry ice. And that was the only time I'd ever experienced that. And my mom and I were like, okay, I guess we'll use that. And then by the time we landed, my insulin was frozen. And I didn't even know like insulin could get frozen. I thought, because like you can't freeze certain like alcohol you put in the freezer, it doesn't freeze. I thought it was like that. But so it was frozen and we were freaking out. I thought I'd have to go to the hospital. But we just waited and rolled it and everything, and it thawed a little bit, but that's just something to watch out for. If you ever go on a flight and they try to give you dry ice, don't don't do that. Just bring your own ice pack. And they have ones that are like not ice, they're just like a cold kind of material that keeps things cold. That's an important one to keep around.
And there's companies that sell the little refrigerator packs that, that are specific for insulin. And so those are out there as well.
yeah, we just bought one for Taylor for her traveling. It looks like a mug, but you can plug
Oh,
it in, and it's like a refrigerator. So if you're in your hotel room, you
oh
can just
wow.
plug that in instead of sometimes, nowadays a lot of hotels don't even have refrigerators,
I
and they'll
know,
charge you
yeah.
$25 a day. So that was when I saw that, I was like, oh, genius. You just plug it
Yeah.
in, just like you would charge your phone and everything. You plug that in, and that's all you need. You only need a little thing for your travel parts. But it's good when you're at home too and you don't have anything when you're desperate.
Yeah, I didn't know about that. That's good to know. I think someone also just asked, I rely on Lantus once a day. I'm traveling across country by plane for the first time since diabetes diagnosis. How many insulin pens is advised to take? I heard twice as many as you need.
I mean,
Yes.
that's a good question for their doctor, because we don't know how quickly they go through insulin. But yeah, just make sure you have, I think twice is a good.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would
I
say,
agree.
yeah, it's to definitely err on the side of caution. And in general, this is kind of, it's funny because this is what we talked about in our last brown bag in terms of like traveling with diabetes and accommodations and everything. But it's definitely important to have pretty much double what you think you'll need on everything when it comes to like having a whole separate tester kit just in case like yours malfunctions. If you use a pump, extra pump, like twice the amount of pump supplies that you need, because you never know what might happen. And also you could keep them in separate places, like don't put them all in like a checked suitcase. Definitely keep them with you. I would say that.
Yeah, definitely. Never check any of your diabetic supplies. Put them in a carry-on, because if anything gets lost from a luggage perspective, even filling your prescriptions every month, there might be limits that your insurance pays for X number. And if you lose any of it, you can call them and get a replacement if needed, but it's just better to always carry everything of your supplies and your insulin with you.
Yeah, there are some people in the chat who are also saying the Frio packs are a good way to keep insulin cool. And don't use dry ice. I could have used that advice 15 years ago. And then someone said under the American Disabilities Act, hotels don't charge for fridges that are needed for medications. That is true.
Usually, yeah, they don't. But then if it's not in your room, then you gotta plug it in, and then you gotta wait for it to
Yeah.
cool and get nice. But yeah, so just we're always just prepared to have it ourselves, and
Mhm.
that way we have control of what's going on.
Yeah. Our next question is in the context of diabetes, emergencies, and or natural disasters, why is it essential for people with diabetes to have consistent and reliable access to the supplies and medications that they need?
I mean, having
Well,
extra
obviously,
go ahead, Nancy.
sorry, go ahead. No, okay. No, I was going to say that obviously we need our insulin to survive. And without it, there could be serious consequences. So it's essential. And so, and we shouldn't have to ration it. We should always have enough of it. Go ahead, Chandra.
No, I was gonna say that having extra insulin, at the end of every month, or being able to afford the insulin, it's not always an option. And I wish it wasn't a problem, but it is. It is. We've asked the endocrinologist on times, especially around traveling, or just she's in school, and then so her insulin will be in two different places. We've actually asked them to increase her usage, and that way we can get a buffer. And it's not something that we just all the time, because we are honest with the endo on what the actual numbers that we are using, but it's just in a situation, and they'll usually do it, and that way you can at least have a little bit.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I had not thought of that. But yeah, especially if you live in a place that's susceptible to natural disasters or, the unpredictable, that's really useful.
Yeah, and I mean, in Hawaii, we can't drive to another state and get help. We'd love to, but it's not an option right now. So, but saying that, driving, if you live in the mainland, there's always the option of going to the outer countries, the drivable ones, and going there.
Yeah. Sorry, can everyone hear me properly? There was a message saying that I'm not coming across as clearly. Okay. I'm assuming.
I hear you fine.
Okay. Okay. I just want to chime in here to bring up Kevin's Law. This is something that has been passed in at least 17 states. It allows a pharmacist to dispense an emergency supply of insulin to a patient whose prescription has expired or they have no more refills available at the moment. And it's something that the patient would need to stay alive. So Kevin's Law helps patients with expired prescriptions who can't get in touch with their doctor. It allows the pharmacist to dispense that emergency supply. And the requirements are the patient has to go to a pharmacy that has their previous prescription on file. So if they go to CVS for their prescription, they have to go to a CVS. It doesn't have to be the exact same one. And so this is like if it's a holiday, and like places are closed, or like if you dropped it and you're on vacation or you didn't pack enough, so they can authorize a one-time emergency fill. And it, like I mentioned, it doesn't have to be the same exact location, but the same provider. So I just want to chime in and talk about that.
And how come only 17 states? Oh, that has to change. That has to change.
Yeah. Okay.
But even pharmacies having the ability to give the insulin for someone who needed it. Last year we had the fires on Maui in Lahaina and Kula, and they were experiencing brownouts and everything. And a lot of the pharmacists and clinics, sorry, were not comfortable having insulin because they didn't know when their power was going to go out and how long it was going to be out for. Yeah, when even the people who have it aren't storing it, and rightfully so, you know, it is a bad situation, but yeah, you gotta have friends.
Yeah, having friends with diabetes is definitely essential. And
Yeah.
luckily, but not luckily, a lot of people know at least one person who has diabetes. So
I mean, because a friend of mine who also has type 1 diabetes, we actually flew to Maui with a suitcase of insulin and supplies, and we went and we took it over there. And because, you know, I get it. You know, it's scary. And so I'm going to be there and I'm going to help, you know, whoever I can, whenever I can. But yeah, to have a suitcase full of supplies was like, ah, amazing.
yeah, I'm sure you really helped us. It's important to have friends like Chandra. So our last question, and then we can also take some more questions from the audience if there's time. But what advice do you have for people with diabetes or the families of people with diabetes in terms of emergency preparedness?
This is Nancy again. My video is not working, but I suggest always having a copy of your prescriptions available and a letter from your doctor explaining that you have type 1, a list of all the supplies that you regularly use or ever could possibly need, even if it's not something you might use at this moment. Like, for example, you may not have like every diabetic supply out there. You just have the doctor write it in the list that you could potentially need this. And that's also good if you're traveling to have that with you kind of just as documentation related to your diabetes. Someone asked about where is Kevin's Law available? And I would suggest checking your own state, because if you Google Kevin's Law, there's a lot of a few different Kevin's laws out there. And so check to see if your own state has that law available. Also find out where to get emergency insulin, like check now, get all your preparation ready now so that if an emergency ever happens down the road, you're already prepared and you've got the information that you need. You know, I recommend keeping at least a week's supply if you do have to evacuate. And as Chandra mentioned about trying to stockpile some insulin and extra supplies, and let's say you get a 30-day supply, order your refills a few days earlier, ask your doctor to order extra, like if you use 50 units a day, have them write your script for 70 units a day or 100 units a day. And that way you can stockpile a little bit of extra insulin just to have backup. That's always helpful. And ask questions in your community and, you know, check, there's Facebook pages out there. There's different resources where you can help people and people can ask for help, like Pay It Forward diabetes sites and things like that, so that you're always prepared for anything. I'm
I
done.
have two advice. The first one would be have some sort of plan. I say discuss it as a family while things are not in an emergency situation. And that way, when the emergency situation comes up, everyone is on the same page. They know exactly what's going to happen because as a family, we've discussed staying, if there's let's say there's a hurricane and we have warning. The plan is that Taylor and I will look for an airfare wherever we can go and get off island. Because if something happens here, tsunami, you know, we don't know how far the water is going to come up. Something happens, then we will be out of the danger. And, you know, knock on wood, it's for nothing and we come back home, but at least we'll be safe. And that's something that we've discussed earlier. And so we know that if it happens, that's going to be the plan of action. So discuss it before things happen and have an action. My second one is acts of kindness. Always, always try to pay it forward whenever you can. Because if you're in a bind, you want to know that, there are people out there. So if you're kind, there's kindness out there. But I do know that the diabetes community is always on, no matter what. They're good to go. But I think acts of kindness doesn't only have to be diabetes related either, just as a human being.
Yeah, that's a really nice way to put it. I feel like that's not something that we would usually think of, but definitely, like for example, what you did when the fires in Maui, like that, you really saved some people's lives. That's really important as a diabetes community to stick together. I wanted to just chime in with some stuff that DPAC has just put together for our emergency preparedness. For advice. So many city and county emergency management agencies have registries for people with disabilities to self-identify so that they can get targeted assistance during emergencies and disasters. So it would be good to call your local emergency management office to self-identify as someone with a disability. Another one is to wear a medical ID. I know many people, we all know about this, but people sometimes forget to wear it every day. And then to keep important documents like in a safe area where they can't, get wet or like something protected. And then another one is to keep extra non-prescription drugs like Tylenol, pain relievers, antihistamines, to keep those on hand as well, just in case, like worst case scenario, you need to manage pain. And then to have extra, we talked about this briefly earlier, but in your car to just have like a whole extra kit in the car. So like in addition to like things that you use generally for car emergencies, like jumper cables and car chargers and stuff, but keep like an extra glucagon kit in the car, an extra tester and extra syringes. Yeah. That was all the advice that I had. Someone is with advice in the Q&A saying build a kit ahead of time, don't put insulin in it yet, but keep the insulin in the refrigerator, put a bright colored sign on your kit stating that insulin needs to be put in there. That's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. I do that when I pack for trips too, because you can't put the insulin in too early. Yeah, and we're actually ending on time this month. So thank you. I know Chandra and Nancy did some preparation beforehand, but to make sure that we fall into the
Stayed
time
within the
frame.
time limit.
I know, yeah, I really appreciate it.
For everything. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. Hopefully we imparted some good knowledge onto you, and stay in touch with our social media platform this month so that you can see other things that we do for natural disasters, as well as the second half of the month will be focused on diabetes emergencies. So that will start next week. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.